when you're trying to identify who it is that you're targeting, you really have to do it on like a person-to-person level. So like if you were bringing them to meet up with a bunch of your friends, what would you tell your friends about this person that they're about to meet? You wouldn't say, they're between 20 and 40 in this specific geographic area and are engaged. That's not how we describe people.
The goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
You're listening to Perspective, a podcast for Wedding Craves, where we sit down often with a special guest and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry. Joining us today via the internets is Heidi Thompson, who is a best-selling author of Clone Your Best Clients, which, funnily enough, is the topic for today's episode. She's also the founder of Evolve Your Wedding Business, where she specialises in business and marketing strategy for wedding professionals. She also does a podcast titled The Same Thing, which you should definitely check out. This episode is going to be great if you're having trouble with booking the style of weddings and couples you want. You'll also be finding out what's really important for connecting and marketing to said couples, so keep listening. This episode is, of course, sponsored by With Jack. Hello, Ashley. How you doing? However, in the meantime, Greg, and you're going to hate me, but what are we drinking?
We are drinking a coffee that I don't know too much about. It came from a friend of ours called Lee Phillips. He brought it into the office when we weren't here, but I think it's called Drink the Hustle.
No, Greg. This is the Sky Grounds.
Oh, you've brewed up the wrong stuff.
I have brewed up the wrong stuff. Oh my goodness.
Scrap that then. So, we're drinking some Sky coffee again here. Heidi, what are you drinking?
I got regular old boring coffee, but I got some French vanilla creamer, so it's a little something.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I like that. A bit of luxury in there. So how was your weekend?
Very chill. I didn't do a whole lot, and it was actually really, really nice. Just kind of relax, do some stuff I need to do around the house, and just kind of not do anything. It was nice to kind of turn off.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it always feels nice to be able to do that as well. We've been kind of busy over here.
Yeah, we delivered an elopement that we filmed at the 1st of April.
Yeah.
So we delivered that at the weekend to the couple, and instantly they replied and were like, "Oh my God, can we share this everywhere?" I'm like, yeah, go, share.
Yeah, so, it's exactly what you want.
Instagram and Facebook was buzzing with lots of comments from their friends and family.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Have you ever been to Scotland at all?
I haven't been to Scotland. I lived in England for 6 years, but I never made it up to Scotland, actually.
Oh, okay. So where about in England did you live?
Right near Cambridge.
Ah, right. Okay, nice. Okay. And Scotland never drew you up with its mystery and...
I mean, it is on my list of places to visit. I don't know why. I don't know why it was. I think the furthest north I made it was actually Manchester.
Okay. So not too far up either.
Yeah.
But that's cool. That means there's more of the country to discover once you're back over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the elopement that we did, it's kind of interesting because, I mean, I don't know if you've like checked out Scotland on like Instagram or whatever, but you tend to see the same kind of places, Glencoe, Skye, all these kind of places. But we were shooting in a lesser known spot, certainly away from Instagram's eyes, I would say.
Yeah, it was a place called Corryfee, which is it's the Angus sort of area, Perth, Dundee sort of thing. But it was amazing because the couple love going out walks, and this place meant something to them because they were just out a walk one day with their dog, and the bride decided to propose to her groom at this exact spot. And now later on they're getting married at that same spot.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. And
I could see why they got engaged there because it's stunning. So you kind of start the day, you get ready, they hopped in the van and they headed for the kind of the start of the walk, and it's about a 2-hour walk, maybe less than that.
Not quite that.
But it takes you up through trees and forest grounds, past rivers, and you end up at this amazing the trees clear, and there's this huge opening, and all you can see all around are mountains, all around in a big semicircle.
It's like a natural sort of amphitheater.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the perfect word to describe it. And there's kind of like this platform right kind of in the middle. And they got married there, and it's just so serene, and it was wild as well. The wind was crazy, but it was beautiful. And somewhere I hadn't been before. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing my job, to be honest.
Yeah, I suppose on our end of things, we get to go on the day with the couple, but your job doesn't really involve the couple or on the day sort of stuff, I suppose.
No, can't say it does anymore, at least. I used to work with couples, but not anymore.
Was there too much drama? Did you move away?
Well, for me, I mean, my background is a mix of working in the events world, largely for nonprofits, and working in marketing. So I'm a big marketing nerd. And that is actually where I noticed when I was living right near Cambridge that there was a big gap in the market at the time. So this was probably 2010, 2011-ish.
Right.
Okay, cool.
And I saw that everything that wedding fairs were doing and everything that the wedding media was doing was very like white and fluffy. And I feel like everyone at that time was like taking a hard left turn into rock and roll bride, offbeat bride territory.
Yes.
So I took it upon myself to start the alternative wedding fair to bring together like these couples that were just so amazingly creative and quirky and different, and vendors that were absolutely amazing. Like if they were paid on their talent alone, would all be millionaires. But I spent a ton of my time coaching them on getting the best return on investment out of the show. And that's where it kind of smacked me in the face that not everybody is super into the whole business and marketing thing, and that I could bring these worlds together.
Yeah, I obviously I can't speak for all creative individuals, but I feel like with the rise of social media, people just had so much information thrown at them at one time, and they're kind of floundering about, not knowing what to do in terms of like, the algorithms and rules and things to follow and what people are saying and doing. And I feel like most of creative people are kind of having a hard time market-wise. Not only that, obviously, it's a very difficult subject to do, but they just don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overwhelm just because, it's the double-edged sword of there are so many things you can do, which is great, but it's also bad because then it's like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've touched on a bit your background already there, but before we sort of get into the wedding and business and clients and stuff, do you want to just give us a quick sort of background on who you are?
Sure. So my name's Heidi Thompson. I should probably know by now, but my business is called Evolve Your Wedding Business, and I help wedding professionals of all different kinds grow their businesses without going crazy in the process. I think there's so many places where you can go crazy in the process.
Yeah.
And whether it's with the marketing, with, okay, now I have all these clients and I have no time, and how do I manage all of this? And my zone of genius is really working with wedding professionals to help them grow the business that gives them, the results they want, the freedom they want, whether that's, financially, creatively, in terms of their time, but also is this really profitable, satisfying business for them.
I mean, obviously you mentioned 2010, you're in the UK. When did you start the Evolve Your Wedding Business?
That was about 2012, I think, end of 2012.
Okay, so it really did come from seeing the wedding industry and not just business as a whole.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So before I moved to the UK, I'd worked a bit as an assistant planner and really enjoyed it. But I noticed that what I thought I loved about events, which was like the planning side of things, that wasn't actually accurate. I really loved when I was working in, fundraising for charities was getting people to these events, like the marketing side of it. So that really drew me into the marketing world and all sorts of different industries, both in the US and in the UK. But so that was an immediate like smack in the face. Like I remember exactly when it happened. It was at the event and I was like, oh, okay. This is something I need to think about because I know I can help. I just have to figure out how.
And how did that realization come to you then? Was it just slowly over time, a thought process kind of bubbled away, or?
It was over time, but it was over time through taking action. So through, working on a one-on-one capacity, coaching with clients, doing standalone courses, kind of getting a feel for what business model felt right to me and was getting the results for the clients. And that's how, over the years, I've landed where I am now, which is my business runs on a membership model. So I put all the courses I've ever created and continue to create, group coaching and on the higher tier one-on-one coaching together into a single place, because I found like my coaching clients need the education piece and people in my courses needed the coaching. So it just kind of made sense to meld it all together. But I'm a big proponent of clarity coming from action.
Okay. In terms of like the majority of problems that people would come to you with, what would be what would you see most, like a common fault in most businesses?
So what most people will say is the issue is that they're either not getting enough leads or not enough leads are turning into bookings. But then when you dig deeper and start to ask them questions about it, 90% of that has to do with the fact that they don't really know who they're marketing to. So it's just kind of throwing stuff out there without a target.
Yes. I feel like that's what I've seen from most couples and most suppliers. And I think we've gone through that as well, being just throwing stuff out there without like a focus, thinking that, okay, the bigger the net, the more clients you'll get. But I think it's kind of ironic that that's not really the case. Just out of curiosity, do you see a difference between the way that UK businesses manage themselves and the way that US businesses manage themselves in terms of marketing? Is there a difference?
I do. Yeah. There's obviously a big difference in tone.
Okay.
I think Americans by default, we're just more direct. For better or for worse.
Okay.
We just are, sorry, that's the way.
Like you said, for better or for worse. Like,
And I think along with that, we mindset wise are a little bit more, although we definitely still struggle with this, are more comfortable marketing and selling slightly, but there's still the mindset hangups for sure.
Yeah, and that's a common thing that I've seen as well. Like lots of people over here don't like the idea of selling. I find I find that kind of mindset really interesting, and I've never really known whether it would be like, does that mindset come from the people selling and their confidence, or they've looked at their marketplace and kind of seen the difference in how consumers are being affected by the sort of stuff that they're putting out?
Well, everything that I've learned and studied about mindset is that it comes from beliefs, usually that you developed at a fairly young age. So they're more like really hard statements about what things are and what things aren't. Like, it is rude to sell, or selling is bad, or rich people are greedy. Like something very definitive like that. It's somewhere in the back of your head, and then it kind of comes up in different ways. So if you believe that rich people are greedy, you're going to be super hesitant to sell. You're going to be super hesitant to raise your prices. Anything that could make you this person that you've decided is bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and then obviously you've taken all of these ideas and you've written a book.
I have.
Called Clone Your Best Client.
Yeah. So this book comes from that realization that the common thread was not knowing who you're marketing to, or knowing in like a demographic sort of way that doesn't really help you figure out what to do with that information.
Yeah. So I've kind of noticed that there's this trend in like with photographers and filmmakers, and they tend to go after the kind of cool, outdoorsy, hipster kind of couple over here. You know, the kind of couple who want to go into the wilds and have an adventure and shooting all the kind of cool, Instagrammable, epic locations, you know? Mm-hmm. But then, you know, I've spoken to a few of these photographers and filmmakers, and when you start to speak to them on a non-business level, you hear their interests, you kind of get to understand who they are, their lifestyle. That kind of cool hipster couple that they're going after, it seems, doesn't really seem to fit them on any real level. So I guess the first thing I've always wanted to know is, can like a small creative brand that reflects its own business be completely different from those who run the business? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think they can. I think on some level there are going to be similarities, and this is where I like to direct people, is when you're trying to identify who it is that you're targeting, you really have to do it on like a person-to-person level. So like if you were bringing them to meet up with a bunch of your friends, what would you tell your friends about this person that they're about to meet? You know, you wouldn't say, you know, they're between 20 and 40 in this specific geographic area and are engaged. You know, that's not how we describe people. So even if you aren't, you know, a super adventurous person, I would think if you are aligned with that work and you're aligned with some part of who they are, or that you like a certain thing about them, or you share a similar value, similar belief, like maybe you want to be that kind of person, but you're just not that person. Like you're the kind of person who goes and looks at sporting goods and you're like, oh, I'm going to get that kayak. And then you just don't do anything with it. You might be drawn to, you know, more adventure types, but I think a lot of times people just consciously or unconsciously imitate what they see without realizing that they get to choose who they want to attract.
Yeah.
In your experience, can people in small brands get confused with that idea because they're seeing so much
I think
content
so.
out there on Instagram? And
yeah, I think it's incredibly easy to feel like this is what I have to do, or this is what everyone else is doing, so that must mean it's working, or that must mean it's successful. And really, it's just kind of like a confirmation bias. Like you're just seeing it over and over and over again, and you don't know if that business is profitable at all. Maybe, you know, those clients aren't spending the kind of money you want to charge, but it's really, really easy with social media to kind of indoctrinate yourself, even without realizing it, and just feeling like there is a right way to do it.
Is the right way, and this, I guess this is kind of more of a general question, is it all dependent on the person's values? Like say, like success, I guess it means like in life general, you can have people who make a lot of money and they define themselves as successful. Or the kind of the metric that other people use might be like, oh, well, I'm just really happy. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm just a really happy individual. And that's their idea of success. Is that the same in business?
I think so. Yeah, I think it all comes down to really thinking about what it is that you want. Like, what's the goal here? You know, if you want to build a business where you have ultimate time freedom for yourself, well, then certain ways of running your business are going to be contrary to that. You're probably going to be outsourcing more. There's going to be a different path you're going to take based on what you want. So I think it's really important to think about, and this may change and that's totally okay. But to really think about, what do you want in terms of your business, in terms of the work you want to do, in terms of who you want to work with? Because I think we all kind of fall into this rhythm of like, well, I'll just put some stuff out there and we'll see who I get and I'll just do the work, without stopping to think, is this what I want? Is this the type of business that I want, the structure? Because there's always a way to build things intentionally to get what you want. It's just a matter of figuring out what you want, which is often easier said than done.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So before you can sort of clone your best client, you need to sort of know who your best client is. What does your best client mean to you?
So the way I describe it is the client you wish you could put in a cloning machine and just work with over and over and over again. And you get to define what those qualities are. I would assume, and for most people, there is a level of enjoyment of working with this particular client, a level of enjoyment of the person, and of the kind of work that you're doing for them, but also profitability. But you have to be careful because your most profitable client might be a nightmare, like not the kind of person you want to work with over and over and over again. So they go hand in hand.
Yeah. And why is it important for people, especially in the wedding industry, to sort of know who their ideal client is?
Well, the way I frame it in the book is, if you don't know who your ideal client is, especially at like a human level, you're essentially trying to, shoot a bow and arrow at a target that you don't know where it is. Like, you're blindfolded. So your chances of hitting it are incredibly slim because you have no idea where it is. It puts you in this air of uncertainty and lack of clarity and lack of focus. And you can really only attract the kind of clients that you want to attract if you are intentional about that. And then you base your marketing off of it so that you become like a lighthouse. You become the go-to person for your ideal client.
So, I mean, obviously you used the analogy of how would you describe someone to your friends? What steps can wedding professionals take to find out who their ideal client is then?
Yeah, so the first is definitely looking back at who you have worked with and which of those people you just think, oh my God, I would be so happy if I could just, shoot that person's wedding in a variety of different ways over and over and over again. Like, if that person got married 100 times, that would be great for me. Obviously not great for them, but looking at that and identifying that's definitely the first step. And then from there, looking at, once you have this list of names, are you noticing right off the bat any sorts of patterns or similarities between them? Because sometimes you find, all these people are super similar human beings. You could put them all in a room and they'd have a great time. But sometimes you find that you have a couple different subsets of your ideal client. And so it's really good to kind of see, okay, do they all fit into like one bucket, or are there like smaller buckets under that, umbrella of the kind of person that you want to work with? So that's the first part, is getting kind of introspective about who you have really enjoyed working with and how they relate to the others that you feel that same way about.
Obviously, some of our listeners out there are actually new to the business. So if they can't look back, if they can't be retrospective, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Great question. So if you don't have anyone to base this on, you have to make a hypothesis. You can base it on people you know in your life. You can base it on people who you think you might like to work with and target them. But it's really important to keep in mind that you can change this at any time. So let's say you make that decision, you start working with this kind of person and realize, no, this isn't it. This isn't quite right for me. You can pivot from there and change that. This isn't set in stone. And I think that's what a lot of people get anxious about. It feels like a big decision. But it's better to pick someone to target and then target them than it is to just try to generally market for a really long time and see if you can get any traction, because it's going to be a lot slower that way.
Can a brand have 2 or 3 different focuses in terms of like patterns? I suppose that would be like a niche, right?
Yeah. I think oftentimes it's people who fall under the same kind of umbrella, but it can also be that, if you're offering different services or services at different levels, that you're attracting different people to those. So it's important to look for the commonalities, but it's also important to look at, okay, who am I attracting with this specific package? So, for example, I have a friend who is an officiant, a celebrant, and she noticed that she was attracting a couple different types of people, all people who would get along, but the values were slightly different as to why they were coming to her. So one group was like her geeks, her people who go to Comic-Con because she's totally that person. And, the way she speaks and the references she makes reflect that. And people love her for that. The other group had nothing to do with that. They just really valued having an incredibly personal ceremony for whatever reasons that they had. This is something that was really important to them. And they wanted someone, that wasn't just going to have, pick ceremony 1, 2, or 3, and we'll go with it. They were going to write it from scratch. They're going to base it on their story. And there is like a Venn diagram between those groups and what they have in common. And that's where she markets from. You don't want to be wholly introspective. I think really the gold is in talking to your previous clients. I think it is the best untapped resource of marketing intel that any of us can tap into. And actually, and it sounds scary, but it's actually super fun, interviewing your best clients and asking them questions to figure out what it is that drives them, because marketing is psychology and you have to understand what someone cares about in order to be able to market to them effectively.
Yeah. So you're talking to purely the ones who you think are your best clients, not like all your past clients.
Well, if you wanted to be crafty, you could also interview the ones you hated so you can figure out what not to do.
Yeah, usually people like to stay away from those couples.
What's a couple of questions that you would suggest using in those sort of interview situations?
So obviously, I always like to ask things like, how did you find me? But I think the really interesting insights come from why-based questions. Like, why did you decide to work with me instead of another videographer, instead of another planner? Who else did you look at? What was it that made you make that decision? I also really like to ask, if you were referring me to a friend of yours, what would you say? Because they're going to tell you exactly the way that they are going to describe you and the value that they got out of working with you. And I find that when you ask questions like, why did you decide to work with me? What was the best thing about working with me? What did you wish you knew? You find these things about yourself and your process and your work that you probably take for granted, but are actually quite unique.
Yeah. It's interesting. I do quite a lot of that even before a couple have booked. So when a couple inquires I like to try and get them on the phone or in person as soon as possible so that I can then sort of talk to them, get that conversation going. And one of the things that I like to do is let them do the talking. So I ask them questions and then just let them talk about our company and our wedding films. And that way they're selling their self on you. It's
I
good.
love that.
Yes.
And I think that's something we don't do very often, like whether it's in the sales process or after you've worked with someone, we don't tend to ask our clients a ton of questions that could help us with our marketing. But if you, straight up let them know that, look, you guys don't tell anybody, but you're totally my favorites. And I wish I could work with you guys over and over again. So help me find the yous in the world by answering a couple questions for me or hopping on a call with me. Who doesn't want to talk about themselves in that way? Like, I'm so special.
Yeah.
Taking that tactic, you're not going to go to the couple that you don't like and say, so guys, you were actually the worst couple we've ever had.
Right.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Don't be a dick about it.
In terms of communication, I quite often see this issue or this question, or it turns out to be a debate, actually a very long thread that people don't really seem to have the answer to. So I want to hear your perspective. Creative people like photographers and videographers, they always ask what other people are doing with their price. So there's kind of like the two options, right? There's like the show it up front or there's the not show it. And I guess I'm asking because it's kind of like with Greg's script idea, not script idea, but the way he lets couples talk and sell themselves. What do you think is the best way, or what are the benefits to putting your price up front over keeping them concealed? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a ton.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I think if you are going to put your prices like this package is this much, this package is this much, you cannot give the price without context. So something I see a lot in my members, I do a website review every month and I just record my screen as I go through. And so often I find, and it's almost always with planners, photographers, and videographers, because they're the more technically minded ones, their packages are very matter of fact, and the copy is not doing any selling for them. It's not selling the benefit of why you would want this. It's just, this many hours and this is the result. But you are not selling them what they want or something they care about. They don't know how many hours they need you on site. They just know in a more amorphous way what they need. So an example I give a lot for photographers, instead of saying like, you're going to be there for 10 hours, say we'll be there from the point you're getting ready until midway through the reception, so that when your dad has had one too many drinks and starts busting out his dance moves, we capture every moment of that. That makes me want to give you my money.
Nice. Yeah, totally.
That instantly gives you a reason to want those extra hours.
And putting "so that" at the end of anything that you are trying to sell really helps elicit what that benefit is. So anything, you get this in the package. Okay, why? So that this. So that's a really good exercise to go through. And I think if you're going to put your prices on your site, that needs to be in place. It can't just be numbers without context. I do think that regardless of what you decide, and, different things work for different people, I absolutely think you should test it. You have to give people an indication, because nobody likes to have a conversation where they feel poor.
And how would you give an indication?
So you
then?
could say our couples typically spend between this, and our most popular, or, our average couple spends this much, and our packages start at this price. Anything that serves as like a guidepost of, okay, I know that this is the starting price, or I know that typically their couples spend this much.
Does that need to be like an obvious tell? Like, I suppose certain brands like, I don't know, I'm going to pick one out there, Gucci. When you hear that brand name, you think, well, I suppose quality or high price. You associate that with a luxury brand. So I don't even need to hear or see any other information to know that. That obviously might be because I've seen or heard of this brand before. I've seen people talking about it. Are there any, like, do you have to be obvious with that sort of tell, I guess? do you have to tell couples that information, or can you portray it in another way? Like with the fonts you use?
Yeah, I think you can, but I think when you do that, when you don't give any information, you run the risk of the whole, if you have to ask, you can't afford. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I know I remember hearing this when I was a kid, that if you go into a shop in like Beverly Hills and you ask about the price, you'll probably get some snooty salesperson who says that. And it's like, okay, well, you don't know how much money I have. I just want to know what it costs. Like, I'm not passing judgment on it. I just need to know, is this within the ballpark of what I was expecting? Because if you don't have any indication, chances are people are opting not to contact you because they're afraid. And they may be thinking, because maybe what is expensive to them is like 10,000 and maybe your highest package is like 5,000. So what they are perceiving as, oh, they're expensive, it's actually completely reasonable for that person if they knew, that this is actually what your packages cost, or that there's some sort of indication, because again, no one likes to get into that position, and no one likes to be the person like, how much does it cost? Like, then it makes it seem like that's all I care about, but really I just need to know that in order to know if we need to have a conversation. So I totally get not wanting to put all of your prices out there, especially without context. But what I think some people do, and it's really strange to me, is they will not share their prices because they're afraid of their competitors seeing them. And it's like, but now your customers can't see them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that also sort of encourages this sort of race to the bottom sometimes.
Right, and it's like, with your ideal client, and I talk about this in the book a lot, putting yourself in a category of one, making yourself the go-to person for a specific type of client. Then when it comes time to compare you to others, it's kind of an apples and oranges situation, because you have the company who's perfect for you, and then you have the other companies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can usually command higher prices if you are, seen as the go-to option. I think it does get really tricky when you start comparing, though. And I think, yes, it's good to be aware of what's happening in your market, but it's not good to crowdsource your pricing, because you don't know that person's business model. You don't know if they're doing like in-person sales on the back end, and that's where they're making all their money. You just don't know what's happening. You also don't know what their goals are. And you get to charge whatever you want. I think a lot of times we think there is an upper limit. And if you appeal to what someone really wants, I really don't think there is an upper limit. Like, look at some of these super luxury brands out there. They're selling you.
Yeah, I've heard that sort of.
Yeah, they're selling you an identity. So you're like, yes, I will be this guy if I buy this super expensive sports car. Like, they're not selling you a car, so it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's this sort of idea of, do you want to be thought of as a craft or a commodity? I've heard before. And it's like, if you're the sort of perfect company for that person, they're going to want to spend more. Whereas if you're just a commodity, they're just going to compare you based on price. And
I think that's why it's so important. I mean, it's important for your marketing. It's important for your focus to have an ideal client, but it's also really important for your positioning, to position yourself in the market as a go-to person for this kind of ideal client, because you're not right for everyone. Everyone's not right for you. That's impossible. Even Apple, the most profitable company in the world, has people who hate them. They can't sell to everybody, even though they have an endless marketing budget. So it just makes sense to focus so that those people are like, oh, yes, I need to work with you. Take my money. You are exactly who I want to work with. I don't want a videographer. Yeah. I don't want a planner. I don't want a photographer. I want you. I want what you create.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When people start out, they might assume that one character trait they want to target is air quotes rich people. They see the Italian wedding, or they see people they presume people have wealth when they see these weddings. But rich people isn't really a meaningful way to describe anyone.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And it's not helpful in any way. And when you think about it, the purchases that you make are a result of what you value. And this is true regardless of how much money you have. I mean, you're not choosing based on your values because you can't afford things. You're choosing based on your values because that's how we buy things. That's how, consumer psychology works. So if someone really, really values art, they're going to spend a large proportion of their money on it. Now, if that person has more money, that's going to be, the percentage is going to be larger because that's how percentages work. But that doesn't mean they spend a lot of money on everything. And if they don't care, if it's like, whatever, I don't care where my apples come from. I'm just going to go to the store and buy some apples. I'm not going to buy like designer apples that are, genetically engineered in the newest, most amazing way. Like, I just need some food. So I think it comes down to like personal values and realizing that we're dealing with humans here.
Yeah. So what are some better sort of terms to describe those sort of clients that are your best?
So I think instead of describing them as the amount of money they have, describing them in terms of who they are. I think this is what it always comes back to, who they are and what they value. So what is super important to them and why? So to give you an example, I had a planner that I worked with, and she was marketing her business based on what pretty much every planner does, and that's saving time, saving stress, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Wasn't working for her.
Yes.
So she started talking to her couples that she did have, and she found that the majority of people she really enjoyed working with were Indian, and they were usually one of the last of like their siblings and cousins to marry. And they were so sick of going to the same wedding over and over and over again. And they wanted to bring their culture into it, but they also wanted to bring their personalities into it. Mm-hmm. And once she started marketing based on that, everything changed because she was marketing and identifying them based on who they were and what they wanted.
So, so when you say everything changed, in what sort of ways was she noticing
her bookings went off the charts. She became the absolute only go-to person for that kind of couple in her area.
With Jack was designed from the ground up and is tailored specifically for creatives. Whether you provide a service like design, development or photography, or offer advice to clients, With Jack is for you. It's focused on creatives. Insurance shouldn't be complicated, so With Jack has made every step easy. You'll deal with one form and talk to one Jack as you sign up, get covered, and move on with your day. With Jack is all about bespoke insurance for creatives. Simple. That doesn't mean more forms or faff, it means less. It's not about endless features and stale service. It's about one solid policy and the personal touch. Bye-bye unnecessary fuss. Hello, creative friendly insurance. Be a confident creative. Okay, so you've found your ideal client. You've gone through, you've looked at all your past couples, you know exactly who you're after, and now you have all this information about your ideal client. How is that useful? How do you turn the information into an actual booking?
Good question.
What's the process there?
Yeah, so really it informs your marketing. So something I think we often don't realize is that if you ask questions and listen, like you were saying, people will tell you how to sell to them. People will tell you how to market to them. They'll tell you what was really important to them that really stood out so that you can bring this out more in your marketing. So, using their words, because typically our clients are better at describing what we do than we are because we have this whole curse of knowledge from, being involved in it for so long that it's hard to describe to someone who doesn't know anything about it. But you can also find out, even super basic things like where are all of your best clients finding you? Are they all from a couple of different sources? Okay, we can double down on those for the next, 90 days, for the next 2 quarters, and see what happens when you put more focus on the marketing channels that are giving you these kinds of clients. So really looking for indicators of where can I market and how can I market? So the where being, where are they looking? Where are they not looking? Where am I spending money? Where am I spending time that they're not even paying attention to that I can reallocate? And then the how is really, okay, how are they talking about what they want? Because we're selling a solution to a problem. So we have to be able to articulate the problem that they have. Like I said, with the Indian couples, they want an Indian wedding, but they don't want it to be the same Indian wedding they've been to a million times. They want it to be unique.
Yeah.
So you can use their words to articulate what it is that you're selling. So going through the copy on your website, looking at how you're describing your packages. Does that line up with what people told you? Do you need to draw attention to certain things that maybe you're not highlighting, but are big selling points for people? These are all opportunities to really realign and refocus your marketing to point directly at that person.
Does the where you market, is that going to be an obvious thing to discover?
Well, when you're talking to people in interviews, you have their words. But if you want to dig deeper, there are always, places online you can look. If there are any forums, Facebook groups, anything like that, to see what types of questions your ideal client is asking and how you may be able to address those in your marketing. So, some of the best marketing is educational. It really helps someone understand, the difference between a wedding planner and a venue coordinator, and realize that, oh, okay, I thought I had a wedding planner, but I don't, and I need one. So it moves them.
One of our sort of past guests, who's a friend, Caroline Harper, she does a really good job of that in her blogs, just covering, you can see it's obviously things that she's heard people moan about or not known about, and she's just answering those questions.
It's what really they're going to be searching for.
Yeah.
You mentioned that people don't like to be selling stuff. It doesn't like when you read her blogs and stuff, it doesn't feel like she's selling you anything other than just she's giving you information. But at the same time, that's kind of like portraying a certain image of what she is and what she does to the people who are reading it. So it's pretty subtle, but I really I think a lot of times it's showing you what you don't know, because most of the people you're working with have never done this before. They don't know all of the things that you know about what they should expect and how this works, and the million questions that they have, but they're too afraid to ask. So that allows you to shift their thinking and make them realize the value in what you provide. So we recently talked to another photographer, Cole Roberts, about his e-commerce business called Cola. And they sell high quality prints. And he told us about this one image in particular, which became a top seller. Now, the image itself, he said, wasn't anything special. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was that of an old train, wasn't it, Greg?
Yeah, something along those lines. Train track or something, yeah.
Yeah, but what he told us is that he found a connection between the people who were actually buying it, and it seemed to be that the image was tapping into a sense of nostalgia. And on the podcast, I mentioned how nostalgia is a big thing for me right now, because obviously I've got 3 kids, and things like I went to see the new Aladdin movie with my kids. It was quite a moment for us all. Are there any other ways in which you can tap into other connections with potential clients? Obviously nostalgia is one, but after the episode, I kind of started to think, are there other ones?
Oh, that's a good question.
And what are the most powerful ways?
That's a really good question. That's a great example. I think in order to... that was awesome because it happened on accident with that image. But in order to do it intentionally, you have to know the values of the person. And then I think from there, you have a set of things you can work on attracting people with. So like if, okay, so to use a UK example, if someone is really concerned about where their food comes from and sustainability, they are probably going to shop at a place like Waitrose, and they're going to spend more money on their food because it's something they value. So you can see in the way that that company markets how they elicit that. So I think it's really helpful to look at these big brands that have a ton of money to throw at studying their ideal client and look at how they're communicating that. Because there are brands that are, you know, marketing to a sense of prestige. There are brands that are marketing to a sense of luxury or pampering yourself. And it's just really interesting to see the ways that they do that, because you can absolutely apply that if the person you're targeting values that. Because if you are marketing, you know, to prestige and the people that you're marketing to don't really care about that, that's not going to work. So you do have to know who you're talking to.
Okay. And I guess now that I think about it, recalling something you said earlier about, you know, showing your prices, and you mentioned something, you said, I can't remember your exact words, but you drew attention to we're going to be here so that we can see your dad dancing or something along those lines. And I laughed, and that little line drew me in and connected with me.
Yeah, it's a point of personality that you can show someone.
Yeah. And, you know, I've just been thinking of a big brand image and how the big brand image can connect with people. But in actual fact, the little things that you say actually have a really big impact.
I think they're more important.
It's amazing just how powerful the small things are. It is,
and it's amazing. Like the number of people I get who come and work with me after hearing me on a podcast or hearing me on my own podcast, and they feel like they have a feel for who I am as a person and how I address problems, and they feel like that would align with them. That's one of my best sources. That's why I have a podcast. Plus, I really like it, but but it certainly helps that, you know, people feel like they're getting to know me, and they can decide based on that, do they feel that I'm a good fit for them or not? But I think it's really good to let your personality show, because, you know, someone can copy your style. Ultimately, someone can copy everything about your business, and at the end of the day, the only thing they can't copy is you.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, there's nostalgia, but then I don't know what the word would be to describe it, but like the geek culture, like you talked about, the celebrant who targeted that sort of market of her personality, but that's another sort of thing like nostalgia to tap into, is the geek culture, if that's something that's personal to you.
Yeah, totally. It's funny, I'm a little bit of a geek myself, as Greg knows. I went to Austin a couple of years ago to do a wine party event with the actor from The Green Arrow.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you watched the show, Stephen Amell. But it's funny, you see how even actors are using that sort of connection, because now he's obviously started up a wine brand, and obviously now the show's ending, I think, for him. I'm guessing that's going to be quite a big focus for him. And obviously the brand of the wine is it's been reflected with the show. Like, it's called Knocking Point, and like, if you don't know, like, shooting bows and arrows, you knock your bow. Anyway,
that's smart.
So it's kind of a play on that. It's a play on that character, and they go full in on it, and I really like that. And obviously, so that totally is like,
I think sometimes we're afraid to bring ourselves into our business, but ultimately people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if you don't allow them to get to know you or get to like you or get to trust you, they're probably not going to work with you.
Yeah. And I mean, ideal clients, you can market and target to them as much as possible, but it's not always them that get in touch. And in some sort of markets, it might be quite seasonal. So there's a sort of limited amount of dates that you can fill. Do you have to only book your ideal clients? Or are you one for sort of saying, take on someone if even if they're not your ideal client, just take them on, but don't show it?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So the way I look at it is when you have your ideal client, that's your bullseye on a dartboard. But you are going to attract people in the center rings. You're going to attract people in the outer rings. And that's fine. You know, you get to decide. I would definitely gut check yourself with, is this someone I want to work with? And if it is, great, take them. And but like you said, not everything you do needs to be part of your marketing. Your marketing needs to be in line with who is in that bullseye so that you can attract like the full dartboard of people.
Yeah. I like that. Gut check yourself. I've heard of it as like, you know, when you get the red flags from people, but I've not heard the term gut check.
Because you know, deep down, it's like, this ain't right. There's something, it doesn't feel good.
Especially, you see it a lot on social media, don't you? In the private groups, they're just checking, hey guys, do you think I should do this if this couple have said this and they're doing this? That's them trying to get reassurance for the decision that they're about to make, which is picking a client that's not going to be
or they're looking for permission not to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I suppose I didn't even think about that, but yeah. But it is funny how often that happens. What was that? That hasn't happened to us for a while.
No, I've not felt any red flags for a while.
No.
So if people want to find out more about cloning their best clients, where can they find your book or podcast?
Yes. Tell us
you
where.
Can find my book on Amazon, and you can go to evolveyourweddingbusiness.com/clone, and that'll just redirect you to the Amazon page. And all of my stuff, my blog, my podcast, how people can work with me, all that good stuff is over at evolveyourweddingbusiness.com.
Yes, and I would totally recommend going over there. It's full of some awesome knowledge. I haven't read your book, but I'm gonna
good. You have to let me know what you think.
I'll drop a link in the show notes as well.
I will do, definitely. Just out of interest, does it come in like an Audible version? Or do I need to actually sit down and read it? I don't have an Audible version. I've actually been thinking about doing it, but I haven't yet. That's nothing bad. There's nothing wrong with reading.
Simon's just lazy.
I get it.
Lazy. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Maybe I'll wait a little bit longer to see if you record it. Or in fact, will you record it? You probably would.
Yeah,
right?
if I was going to put an audiobook out, I would definitely want to be the one to record it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I'll put some links to all those websites and social media accounts in the show notes. But thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, my
been
pleasure.
Yes,
and
thank
you know,
you
I can give
very
you guys a link too. I have a free training people can hop into that really walks them through creating a marketing plan for themselves. So obviously the ideal client is part of that, but then how do we, decide what are we going to do with that and put it into a plan? It goes a little deeper into that. So I can send that to you. And for those listening, that's at evolveyourweddingbusiness.com/webinar.
We will, of course, leave that in the show notes for people to check out. Definitely do that with your time.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yes, thank you very much.
And people can find us at Cinemate Films on Instagram, Facebook, and the website's cinematefilms.co.uk/podcast.
And I want to apologise for ruining the coffee this morning.
No. Yeah, what happened there?
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Lee.
I'm so sorry. I even went to the beans that were the most difficult to get because they were behind the desk.
Let me... when I left to go to the toilet, you were like, how do I change out the beans? Why did you have to change them out if you put the same ones in?
Is that what was in them?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there was confusion in the office. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, hit that subscribe button so you know when the next episode goes online. Leave a review, please, because we want to grow this podcast. Or if you're too lazy to do that, totally cool, I'm lazy too, just tell a friend. However.
Until next time.
Greg butchered it. Enjoy your life.